got this 9-speed gearbox which has been mated well to the engine, but when you're pushing it hard. And that's a bit of an if that I have with this car. This is the new Mercedes-AMG C, and being a new car, it has a lot of new stuff. It looks new, it feels new, it also drives new. But the biggest change in this car is its engine. The older car had a turbocharged V6, but this has an inline 4-cylinder engine. So the biggest question is it a proper AMG, and is it worthy of this AMG badge or not? Let's find out. Now before I go ahead and light up the tires on this car, let me tell you about the design changes. Being an AMG, it gets this Pan-American grille with the vertical slats. Also on the bumper and the air intakes, you'll see a lot of aggressive bits to give it that sporty look. On the side, it gets these very nice looking 19-inch alloy wheels which give it a very dynamic stance. And when you look at the back, you'll also find cool looking quad exhaust, a very aggressive diffuser, a lip spoiler. Even on the side, you'll see this very aggressive and nice looking skirting. But when you add all of these design changes with this brilliant looking matte paint, it definitely looks the part as far as being an AMG is concerned. Alright, now let's talk about the driving experience of the C43, and I'll start off with the interior first. Now the moment you step inside the cabin of the C43, well, there's not something radically new, but that's perfectly fine because the existing interior is good looking any which ways. The highlight is this large touch screen. Works well as always. The only difference here is that it now gets some AMG graphics to give it that AMG flavor. Beyond that, you have got this very good looking flat bottom AMG steering wheel. It gets these circular dials on the either ends. You can use them to either switch from comfort mode to sports to sport plus, or you can also use it to switch off traction control, change the exhaust settings, change the gearbox settings, suspension settings, and a lot. So all of that on the steering, which means you can keep your focus on the driving and you don't have to fiddle around with the touchscreen. So that's a great thing. Works like a charm. Beyond that too, again, the cabin is laid out in a very nice manner, feels like a proper Mercedes cabin. It has got some nice upholstery, even the build quality and the fitment quality is top notch, and the seats themselves are quite nice, comfortable, and they also hug you. So that really helps when you're going fast around corners. They give you a lot of the side support, which is very important for any performance car. And even at the back, well, that is what I like about the C43. Despite being a performance car, it's one of those performance cars which can be used as a family car. It is practical. If we'll talk about the space at the back, you've got a good amount of leg room, and the headroom also is pretty good in this car. You've got a nice cushion armrest, and for enhanced privacy and comfort, you also have blinds that can be manually put up and down. So yeah, and it's a performance car that can be used on a daily basis. You can drop kids to the school, you can go to office, you can take your friends out for a weekend drive. It can do it all. And now let's get to the main talking point about this car, and that's that 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. And the big question, like I said at the start of the video, was does this car deserve the AMG badge or not? Is it a proper AMG or not? So let's start to talk about that. The engine, the specs, first of all, it's got 402 horsepower, 500 Newton meters of torque. So yeah, the figures look good on paper. Also, to give you a perspective, this is more powerful than the outgoing V6. So the AMG engineers have definitely done a mind-boggling job. A 4-cylinder engine that develops more power than a turbocharged V6. And coming to the question of this being an AMG or not, let me tell you an interesting fact. The V6 in the older model was an engine off the assembly line. This one is a handmade engine by the AMG guys. So actually, this is more of an AMG engine than the previous model. So on that grounds, this scores far higher than the older model. But the big question is, does it drive like an AMG? And the quick answer to that is yes, a lot. Not a resounding yes, and I'll come to that why I say that, but yes, a lot like an AMG because off the line it accelerates in a very quick manner. It's got impressive acceleration, and we've been recording runs around 4.7, 4.8 seconds, but that's because the road is damp due to the overnight rain. On a better surface, if you hook up the tires well, you should be able to get about 4.5 seconds standstill to the ton. So yes, good acceleration, and I mean, it goes through the gearbox in a very nice manner. It shifts quickly. It's got this 9-speed gearbox which has been mated well to the engine, but when you're pushing it hard, and that's a bit of an if that I have with this car. When you're pushing it hard, the gearbox really works like a charm, which is a good thing because at the end of the day, you would have spent more than 1 crore to buy a performance car, so you would want to go fast most of the times. So yes, the gearbox does the job brilliantly there, but when you're driving around in the city, the gearbox feels a bit jerky. A lot of time the gear shifts, they just feel a bit jittery. So that finesse that you find when you're pushing the car, through higher RPM, that is sort of missing in the lower revs. But it's not a problem that's acute, so you can easily live with it. And coming to the overall performance, like I said, great acceleration. You can easily cross 200 kilometers, go all the way up to the electronically limited top speed of 250 kilometers. And the other thing that we need to talk about, this being an AMG or not, is the sound. Now, for a 4-cylinder engine, one would expect it not to be that vocal, but surprisingly, it is. It is nothing like you would expect a 4-cylinder engine to sound. I mean, when I drove this car, I was pleasantly surprised because this doesn't sound like a 4-cylinder. It has got the roaring exhaust that you would expect from an AMG. You also have a button where you can enhance the exhaust sound. If you put it into Sports Plus, any which ways it sounds a bit louder. So when you add all of these things together, what you get is a car that sounds pretty much like an AMG should. And put all of these things together and you get close to what an AMG should drive like. Now let's get to the handling part. Handling, again, once you put it into Sports Plus, the suspension, the throttle response, all of it sort of comes together, and with the stiffer suspension setting, you can really push this baby around corners. It doesn't mind quick changes in direction. You can go through a sequence of quick changing corners and the C43 wouldn't put up any sort of a complaint. So yes, it's a great car to drive in terms of dynamics, the grip from the tires, the stability of the chassis, the electronics, the way they work, all of it just adds a lot to your driving experience. And speaking of ride quality, well, it is on the stiffer side, which should be. It's a performance car, but once you put it into comfort mode, it settles down in a very nice manner to the point that you can use it as a family car. It gets that good. So you can use it like a normal C class. I mean, it is that good, but when you want it to be aggressive, you can just turn the wick on and it transforms into a car that can just demolish corners the way you want it to be. The feel from the steering is good. Even the feel from the brakes is quite nice. The brake pedal gives you a good amount of feedback. So when you put all of these things together, you get a car that is engaging to drive. You can easily get a lot of confidence in the car, and that means you can push a car which is fast. So when you combine these things together, yeah, I think it's a pretty good AMG to have. And that brings us to the last part of the video where we will discuss whether you should buy this or not. This car is priced at 98 lakh rupees ex-showroom, which means you'll be paying over 1 crore on road. And its direct rival includes the BMW M340i, which again is a brilliant car. So yes, I mean, if you are in the market for a performance sedan, you would have to look between these two cars, and between these two, I mean, both of them are very different. But if you want something that is loud, it is genuinely fun to drive, exciting to drive, I think the C43 with all of its updates really will keep you quite happy. And in case you still have the doubt whether this 4-cylinder engine is good or not, I think you should just have those doubts off your mind. This engine is a gem of an engine and the car truly deserves the AMG badge. So ladies and gentlemen, if you like this video, then please hit that subscribe button, press that little bell icon and share it as well.